Hello, everybody. Terrence Lakeview here with another episode of the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast, where we talk philosophy from the farm. Our guest today is Mike Dickson, the fit farmer from Big Pond Farm in North Carolina. Today, we'll discuss how Mike went from the fitness industry to farming, why ducks are more fun than chickens, how to improve your health and fitness, and so much more. Enjoy this episode with Mike Dickson. Mike Dickson, welcome to the show.
Hello, greetings.
Now, can we start off learning a little bit about your farm, Big Pond Farm?
Yes, our farm is called Big Pond Farm, and the property is about 10 acres, but our farm only operates on approximately 2 acres, and that 2 acres is surrounded by some wooded areas. And within the 2 acres, we have an acre pond and about a third acre market garden. And in the market garden, we specialize mostly in high volume annual crops such as your lettuces, your kale, arugula, and other greens. And we also grow root crops like radishes, beets, carrots, and we do summer crops too, like tomatoes and squash and cucumbers and eggplant. And let's see here. We raise chickens, ducks, have a goose. We just got a goose. Last weekend, actually. So it's been interesting with the goose on the farm now. I actually think it sounds like a dinosaur, but that's just my... my
it gives watching Jurassic Park a whole new feeling, right?
It sure does. And we also have 3 Australian Shepherds. Our dogs mostly protect the property from deer coming into the garden and just predators coming in to harm our ducks. And we have 2 cats and 3 little people that we raise.
You know, growing up, I come from a big family and I grew up on a farm. For the longest amount of time, my parents said no pets because A, there was livestock, and B, I'm the oldest of 12 children. So my mom said, you don't need a dog. You've got a little brother.
That's funny. So yeah, they keep each other entertained for the most part. But having 12, I can imagine you all keeping each other entertained and probably some fights along the way as well.
That's the way it certainly came about. When they actually did get a dog, though, it was in part as a farm dog, and it actually was an Australian Shepherd. They're a wonderful breed, and where your farm is situated in the woods with that much wooded land, they're the perfect breed to kind of keep everything under control and keep away any predators.
Yes, you're right. They are great, and having the pond, it definitely can attract animals that we don't want, but they do an excellent job of keeping them away.
Now, the pond is an acre. That's a pretty good size. Was that part of the reasoning in doing ducks?
It actually was not. I actually had no intentions of raising ducks at all. We were raising chickens, and we knew we were going to do the garden thing. And a friend of my wife's she had 3 ducks that she brought. She was just giving them to us, and she couldn't raise them anymore. And I was like, sure, why not? I have a tendency to take animals on that I probably shouldn't. But the ducks were actually one that we actually have kept around, and I will continue to keep because I love the ducks. And they've been great.
Ducks have more character, in my opinion, than chickens. They're just more interesting to watch. They kind of have more personality.
I totally agree. They do. They are very interesting to kind of sit and watch, and especially when we let them out to go play in the pond. It's just, they're like kids seeing them splash around in the water and do different things. It's kind of neat.
Now, I actually kind of wanted to talk about this question later, but since we're on the topic already, which do you prefer, the ducks or the chickens? Since you raise both, you're kind of a good judge.
I say for other people, it depends on your context. But for me, I prefer the ducks. And I never would have thought that I would prefer ducks, but I do. For a number of reasons. And I think our context of having the pond and having a wet area that's kind of wet, there is great for ducks. But for me, I like the eggs that they lay. The chickens will kind of, once it gets cold outside, they kind of stop laying eggs. But the ducks will keep going, especially the khaki camels that we have. And I like to have mostly year-round eggs. Just going outside and coming back with an empty basket is not fun. So it's nice to go outside and still get eggs even when it's cold outside. And for me, the ducks they're kind of easier to shepherd and get to go where you want them to go. The chickens are very similar to herding cats. It's almost impossible sometimes. But the ducks they're definitely fun. So I would say eggs, and then the fun factor of just sitting there watching them and then being able to work with them on a daily basis to get them to go where I want them to go is three big positives for me in raising ducks. So definitely ducks for me.
I think that people really don't appreciate docility in animals as much if they haven't grown up around animals or work with animals. They just look at the creature and go, oh, yeah, that looks perfect, and don't realize that it's a nightmare to try getting them to go point A or point B.
Yes, it can be. You're totally right.
Much like children.
Yes, you're exactly right. That is definitely true.
Now, you guys raised the khaki Campbells. What's special about that breed in particular that you've chosen to work with them?
Khaki Campbells is actually one of the best egg-laying ducks that there is. I've heard from on record that there's been a duck that has of the khaki camel breed that has laid 365 eggs in 1 year. So that was like
wow,
that's great. Yes, but on average you can expect in the 200s range as far as amount of eggs that a khaki camel will lay within a year. So that's about the average of 200 eggs per year, and so that is one of the particular reasons that I like the khaki Campbell duck breed. Another one that I'm considering adding would be there's like a white layer, and Metzer Farm also offers I believe it's called like a golden hybrid. So one day I'd like to try those and just kind of compare. But right now the khaki Campbells are up there on my list as far as ducks. We have a couple Cayugas and Indian runners, but still the khaki Campbell is my favorite so far.
Okay. I think that, once again, without having grown up around it, it's really hard for people to think beyond, oh, that looks cool. But the amount of eggs that a chicken or a duck produces really can have a dramatic effect on the farm, especially when you look at the turnaround time for starting a new batch of chickens or ducks and getting them to the point of laying eggs.
Yes, and that can take you from you continuously costing you money on raising your animals, or you actually making some money on raising eggs, especially if you're selling the eggs, which we do. We sell our eggs as well as the other vegetables that we have in our market garden, and we try to look at everything that we have and make sure everything's efficient and making money and not losing money if we can help it.
That's always the preferable goal in farming. Doesn't always happen, but that's the preferable goal.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm curious here, what brought you and your family to agriculture?
Let's see. That was our adventure, I'll call it, and into agriculture. Is more of a progression and a combination of things. I didn't grow up in farming, and I never really grew anything prior to 20 years old or so. So I pretty much had a career in the health and fitness industry, and I worked as a personal trainer and nutritional coach for about 15 years or so, working with clients with various ages and backgrounds. And I was also a competitive natural bodybuilder, and I was very interested in nutrition and where my food was coming from. And as I got more and more into the rabbit hole, I want to call it, of the health and food industry, I became more and more focused on where our food was coming from. But it wasn't until my wife and I decided to buy our first home. It was a house in the city, but it had enough area where we could actually grow a garden, which was our goal. And our goal was also to begin having kids, because we didn't have any kids prior to that. So once we moved in, we pretty much, as soon as we got the garden going, we had our first child. And so our progression towards being farmers was more being gardeners at first. So we were gardeners first, learning how to actually just the basics of growing things. My wife had some background. Her grandfather was really in agriculture, and he was growing. He was constantly growing things, and their family preserved food and did all this, which I didn't do any of that. So I was brand new to it all. But the more our family began to grow, the more I began to grow more food on the property that we had in the city. And we were the only weirdos in our neighborhood that had tomatoes and corn and squash growing in the front yard. So I can only imagine what some of our neighbors were thinking when they would see us growing these different crops in the front yard. So we were maxing it out and growing family at the same time of growing various crops around our city plot. And we got to the point where we were facing a crossroad. We wanted to continue to grow stuff, and I wanted to bring chickens on, but there was some city ordinances and restrictions that we were beginning to face in the direction that we wanted to go. And those ordinances and restrictions that we had, I saw that as hindrances to our goals of wanting to be more connected to our food and more connected to where it comes from and getting our family more connected as a whole. So we were thinking maybe it's time to move out of the city. So we decided to do so. That was something that that definitely was a hard decision, but we were definitely excited that we did it because we moved out onto my father-in-law's property, and which is in a rural area. We sold our house, pretty much sold every possession that we had, just to move out here and start our goal of having a farm. Before that, I never really thought too much of being a farmer, but that was probably the moment of when we actually made the transition from being gardeners to farmers, which were still kind of homesteaders / gardeners farmers at the beginning. But that was the moment where we decided to sell our items and buy our yurt, which we bought our yurt used on Craigslist, and we moved out into the rural area of some family property and set up our yurt.
Now, I want to ask you about the yurt, but first, I think it's interesting. Language has such wonderful variations and subtleties to it. This is going down a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I've started reading a little bit more of the work of the Inklings, the literary group of J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Owen Barfield, and others. And the focus of their work was not simply writing these fantasies like The Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, but they discussed the intricacies of language. And the English language, fortunately, has such wonderful nuance to it. And there is that subtle nuance between gardening and farming when you get down to the word. And I think it's interesting that you noted there's progression when you went from simply gardening to farming.
Yes.
But anyway, so sorry, this is T going down the rabbit hole. This is why we're called the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast. So I'm curious here, what is a yurt? When I first read about this in your guys' story, I'm like, I have to look up what a yurt is. So what is exactly a yurt?
I would classify the yurt as pretty much a glorified tent. It's basically a circular structure. And traditionally, it was set up by the Mongolians, and I believe the Turks set them up as well. But they would basically, it was something that they could use to set up real quickly, to set up housing. And they basically followed different herds where they would hunt and they would live in these different areas. So they would set up their yurts to live in, and then they would take them down and move and follow wherever the herds were going. However, now they are making them, they're more manufactured, structured type homes, but they still follow the basic principles of the Mongolian yurts of setting them up. Our yurt, like I said, is a glorified tent, but it's really neat structure. Basically, everything on the inside, from basically the footing on up, is kind of set up like a normal home, and it depends on where you live and some of the building codes that you may have to work with as far as how elaborate that house has to be. But the yurt is basically the exterior of the home. So you basically you can put them up and take them down if you want. However, to meet some of the building codes that we had to meet, we actually had to make ours more permanent. But it's quite the adventure living in the yurt. It's really neat.
I always am amazed by these things. I think it's fascinating because, you see, I'm from Wisconsin, and even though I'm in southern Wisconsin, living in a yurt is not necessarily a practical thing because of winter being as bad as it is here, because we get that 2 days of spring, a week of fall, and then 9 months of winter. So I'm always just amazed to hear about these things. I think it's so neat.
Yeah, there's I actually think they do better in the colder climates than they do some of these hotter climates. Because I've seen them where the snow is like packed up almost all around them, and they're staying perfectly fine and warm and cozy inside. That's where a lot of them are set up. There's a number of companies that manufacture them. There's Fortress Yurts and Pacific Yurts, and there's others out there as well. But they make them where they can handle high winds and snow. So, yeah.
I think that's so cool because it speaks to, sorry, this is me going down a little bit of a rabbit hole again, but it speaks to the survival of elemental ideas. These have been around since the Mongolians, and obviously if they're still being used, that shows how effective they are. The way that society is structured, if something doesn't work, it doesn't last in the system. That's why failed inventions don't stick around, and that's why I think that in a dozen years they're going to ask, what was a fidget spinner?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Now, your farm posts regularly on YouTube about the farm and what's going on. How did you guys get started doing that?
Let's see. Getting started in YouTube. First, I would probably say it was more of a kind of been inspired by the work of Justin Rhodes and his family at Abundant Permaculture. And watching his videos, and when they got started, they started off more of just journaling their farm on a day-to-day basis. And it was neat to see that. So for us, that was kind of like a prod for us to kind of just start journaling life on our farm. And being friends with them, that was something that he encouraged us to do. And so it started off as being more of a family video journal for us to share with others and our adventures on the farm. And we also saw it as something that we could look back on too. We weren't sure how long we would keep blogging or what the direction it would take exactly. But we just thought it was neat to share with others, and how people began to really like watching our videos of friends and family. And then the more and more people start watching from different areas, it's just neat to see the comments that we receive, and we really appreciate that, and how we're encouraging other people to do the same, or whether they're living vicariously through seeing us is pretty neat to see. So that was kind of how we got started off on our vlog, and now I kind of see it more of a teaching tool as well as sharing our life with others.
I think it's so neat to see that, because truly it's a good way of making that connection and sharing what you guys do. We live in a day and age where never more has the farmer had the opportunity to express what he does and how he does it. I mean, back in the day, your only option was writing a letter to the editor in the newspaper and hoping someone read it. Now we've got all these different opportunities with social media, YouTube, Facebook, all these things where we're able to express ourselves. And as much as we see with, especially like Facebook these days, they're not always a good thing. It still gives the farmer a powerful tool to use. And it's always nice to see farmers using it well. Yes.
And another thing I forgot to mention, another reason we started it was to, as a marketing tool, to share with others basically the function of how our farm works. Yes, they're seeing different stories take place, but they're also seeing the principles that we're applying in how we're raising our animals and how we're growing our food, so that way they can say they know the story behind where their food comes from. because pretty much all of our customers do watch our videos as well.
It's so cool that they do that because it's giving them that level of transparency. It's giving them the opportunity to actually see it happen. And sadly,
Yeah.
I mean, most people aren't going to have the opportunity to take time to go visit the farm, although it's fantastic when they do. But you're allowing them to just pull up their phone and be able to see the vegetables that they are going to eat this next week get raised.
You're exactly right. We could we'll basically do a delivery to especially like our CSA customers, and then they can see basically I'll have a video pretty much right around the same time that they're receiving it of us harvesting it or the story related to their food on that particular week. So yeah, they do have that connection and a story to go with it.
It's the story, the story, the story. That's what's so great about this. Now, your Instagram handle is @thefitfarmer. And as we talked before, you have a background in health, fitness, and bodybuilding. I'm curious if that gives you a different perspective in how food is raised.
I think it does to a degree. I know a lot of farmers have grown up being farmers, and they have a farming perspective on what they're talking about. But I think my perspective with having the health and fitness background, I can give the customers a different perspective on educating them on the health benefits of being connected to where their food comes from. And that's something I'm trying to do more and more of, is to as I do the post about whatever it is, crops that we're growing, and show pictures of it, but also provide them with information on why it's helpful for you to have salad. Why do you need to eat cilantro? What benefits are you getting exactly? And why do you want to stay away from factory raised eggs, things like that, to provide them not with just pictures of the farm, but also knowledge to go with that on why they need to eat the foods that they need to eat.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important that you haven't let yourself go as a farmer, and not to get too critical of the farmers out there, but physical fitness tends not to be a high priority for most farmers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad
exactly
to
right.
see in a industry where the farmers are trying to sell their products as, well, this is healthier for you. And then you look at them and go, are you eating your food? Because it doesn't seem like it's helping you.
You're exactly right. I went to a farming conference in the fall, and man, some of the farmers were not examples of taking care of themselves. Some of them are smokers, and just even though they ate their farm foods, they were just not overall the images of health overall. And I want us to be our farm and our family to be examples of the total package of that. It is about health. You're eating these foods to do good for your body, but to also take care of yourself in a holistic, whole package that you need to take care of your body all around, both the farmer and the customer.
Very true. One of your videos I watched that I really enjoyed, and I think this is a really cool thing you did. You actually had a conversation with a doctor about health,
okay,
and about eating right. I just thought, what a cool thing to do, because most aren't having those conversations. It's where we don't. Now, everyone kind of fits in their own little niche, it seems, but it's so great to see some of those gaps being bridged between raising the food and the health benefits behind it. And to see farmers actually taking a role in this instead of just the dietitians going, oh, well, eat right, and then they aren't involved in the food process.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's important, and I'd like to encourage more farmers to do things like that, to make that connections. You know what? They could connect with nutritionists and other doctors who are promoting health, and you know what? Those doctors and nutritionists would even send them business as well. But to basically be examples all around of just taking care of our bodies, because we set that example, and that's what we're preaching and encourage to others, it will just help us all around.
Now, if you don't mind my putting you on the spot a little bit, we've just kind of criticized some farmers out there who may be listening to the show. What would be some good first steps for them to get in a little bit better shape, to be a little bit healthier, even if they are already eating the right food and just really aren't working on doing anything more than that?
I would first say sometimes there needs to be a balance on the fitness side of it. I'm not saying everybody has to go to the gym. Actually, when I started getting into farming, I actually realized that I really didn't need the gym anymore, as long as you're having a balanced approach to the physical work that you're doing out on your farm, because you can get plenty enough exercise actually doing the things that you need to do on the farm. And unless you're sitting in the tractor all day long, and I'm not trying to offend anybody who does tractor farming at all, but you need to make sure that you're also doing some physical work to where you're getting your heart rate up at times, and your muscles are burning a little bit, so that way you're working those muscles as well. And I've always said, what's the point of missing out and trying to avoid all the physical labor that you have to do on a daily basis? Try to avoid that so that you can go to the gym later on in the evening. Why not just get your exercise in as part of your work routine so you don't have to go to the gym? So that would be one thing. Start off on just making sure that you're getting physical activity of some sort on a regular basis. The other thing would be to, if you have any bad habits like smoking, try to cut those things out, and watch your diet. Eat the foods that you're actually growing, and try to find the diet that your body works well on. So those are some of the steps that I would suggest that they need to take, is just making sure that your health is a priority, because it sets the image for where people's food comes from, and it also helps your longevity as a farmer.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. This has been a fantastic conversation, and you gave us some great practicals, some of which I am going to start applying in my life. Where can people go to learn more about you and your farm?
You can follow us on YouTube on our Big Pond Farm YouTube channel. You can also feel free to follow me on Instagram at The Fit Farmer. Make sure you check us out. And we are also on Facebook at Big Pond Farm. Terrence, definitely thank you for having me on the show. It was definitely an honor and privilege, and I really appreciate it, and love to be on again.
I certainly hope we can make that happen. Mike, thanks again so much. Thanks again to Mike for being on the show. You can learn more about Mike and Big Pond Farm by visiting online, either by going to their website, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, all of which will be linked in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe on whatever podcast player is your preference. While you're there, leave us a nice review, letting others know how great the show is. Thanks again for listening. This has been Terrence Slahue and the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast, reminding you to keep farming the dream.